Hello and welcome to my next video on the F212 January 2012 paper. I'll give you a few seconds to pause to do each question as usual, and tick is a correct answer. Circle tick means it's an additional mark that you've already got all the marks. Anything in brackets means you don't need it, anything underlined means you do need it, and the insert, needed for later, and the mark scheme and the question paper are all in the description. So a few seconds to pause. Good. Question 1. Biological molecules are held together by a variety of bonds. The diagram in figure 1.1 represents an amino acid. One of the molecules that make up an amino acid has been replaced with the letter X. State the chemical symbol of the atom replaced by the letter X. It is a nitrogen atom, so it's N, capital N. Name the polymer formed from a chain of amino acids, polypeptide or protein. Name the bond that is formed when two amino acids are joined together. Describe the formation of this bond. It's a peptide bond. You can get all the marks to the drawing like I've done, or a peptide bond is formed in a condensation reaction between the H from an amino acid of the amine group of one amino acid and the OH of the carboxyl group from another. Now you get 1 mark for saying the amine group of one amino acid and the carboxyl group from another, and you get another mark from saying the H and the OH. Figure 1.2 shows a hydrogen bond between two water molecules. Many of the physical properties of water arise as a result of these hydrogen bonds. Describe ways in which the physical properties of water allow organisms to survive over a range of temperatures. In your answer, you should make clear the links between the properties of water and the survival of organisms. You get 1 mark for having at least once where you have linked the actual property of water with how it helps organisms survive. So, there's many answers here to look at the mark scheme. I've chosen just 3 main points. There's a high latent heat of vaporization. Evaporation is an effective cooling method, example sweating or panting. So there you go, you've already got the quality of written communication mark, because water has a high latent heat of vaporization property, and sweating is, how it helps cooling. There's a high specific heat capacity which creates a firmly stable environment for aquatic animals. Organisms use less energy on temperature control. Internal temperature of an organism changes slowly, so enzymes and reactions function correctly. Ice is less dense than water, so floats, insulating the liquid underneath, so organisms don't freeze. Other examples of what you could have put is it's an effective solvent, so for medium for reactions. Cohesion, so if you can do an example of cohesion or adhesion, so in water moving up the xylem in a plant. Surface tension, habitable for insects, because insects can walk across the surface of water. It's transparent, so allows underwater photosynthesis. And high density, so allows floating. Organisms can also still obtain oxygen from water, because H2O contains oxygen. And so, next question. List 3 other examples where hydrogen bonds are found in biological molecules. You've got protein secondary structure. You can also do the tertiary and quaternary between chains of cellulose and DNA. Okay, so that's that question done. A few seconds to pause. Good. Malaria is a disease caused by eukaryotic parasite. State 2 features of the malarial parasite that indicate that it is not prokaryotic. So the obvious one is it has a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Other ones, linear chromosomes, DNA associated with histones, 22 nanometer large proteins, because prokaryotes have 18 nanometer long, and larger cells, no cell wall. In a piece of word processed homework, a student stated that one species of parasite that causes malaria is called Plasmodium vivax. State 1 error made by the student. I've written 2, just write 1. It's not underlined, indicating it's in italics, and a capital letter from vivax. Since that's a species name, it should just have a lowercase. The malarial parasite is carried by an insect, the female Anopheles mosquito. Describe how the mosquito transmits the malarial parasite to a human. The mosquito is a vector. The Plasmodium parasite is present in the mosquito's saliva. The mosquito bites the human, and the Plasmodium parasite is passed to the human's blood. In order to fight the spread of malaria, insecticides have been used in areas where the Anopheles mosquito breeds. One problem that occurs when using insecticides is this way in the development of insecticide resistance. It's just one other reason why some people might be concerned about using insecticides. You can give any one of these reasons. Destruction of a species is unethical, might cause health problems in humans. For example, if it goes into the food, it could cause problems that way, and it might harm other species who feed on the food or are generally in the ecosystem. Suggest how the effects of insecticide use on a population of Anopheles mosquitoes could be measured and state the steps that should be taken in order to produce valid and reliable results. Sample before and after insecticide treatment. Use random sampling and then use something like a sweep net, pond net, light trap. Sample at different times and weather. Sample large numbers and standardized sampling procedure. So that's that question done. A few seconds to pause. Good. Cholesterol is an important biological molecule. State 2 roles of cholesterol in living organisms. It regulates cell membrane fluidity, is found in steroid hormones. Other examples would be making vitamin D, making bile and waterproofing. Be careful here, since it says cholesterol not lipids, you can't say stuff like insulation, because that's lipids but not cholesterol specifically. Identify one way in which a molecular structure of cholesterol is similar to the molecular structure of a carbohydrate. There are OH groups, in this case I wrote C, H and O only, and there's a hexane or hexose ring. Name 2 molecules that combine with cholesterol to form LDLs, fats, specifically saturated fats, and proteins, or again you can say polypeptides. So, see already, third question, and we are now on a second quality written communication question. LDL have a similar LDL and a similar molecule, high density lipoprotein, HDL, carry cholesterol in the blood. LDL and HDL affect the formation of atheromas in the arteries. Describe the different ways in which LDLs and HDLs affect the formation of atheromas. In your answer, you should make clear the difference in the involvement of LDL and HDLs in the formation of atheromas. This means that you need to make the same point about LDLs and HDLs twice. So if you say, LDLs, you obviously don't get a mark for this, but you say LDLs contain saturated fats, HDLs contain unsaturated fats. That's a mark for the quality of written communication. You need to do this twice. So I've numbered the ticks. So, LDLs carry cholesterol from the liver to the tissues and cells. There are receptors on the cells. LDLs raise blood cholesterol and increase deposition of fats in artery walls, forming atheromas. HDLs carry cholesterol from tissues to the liver. There are receptors on the liver cells. HDLs lower blood cholesterol and reduce the deposition of fat, decreasing the risk of formation of atheromas. Simple enough. In countries such as the UK, in which red meat forms a large part of the diet, people tend to have high levels of blood cholesterol compared with people in countries in which little red meat is eaten. Suggest why diets with a high red meat content are associated with high blood cholesterol. Red meat contains saturated fats. Saturated fats increase the amount of LDLs in the body. Name another disease other than atherosclerosis for which high blood cholesterol is a risk. Now you can say I've chosen type 2 diabetes, but anything from angina, coronary heart disease, stroke, hypertension, high blood pressure, obesity, any of them would be acceptable. So I'll give you a few seconds to pause for the next question. Good. So over halfway through the paper now. The system used by scientists for classifying living things has developed from the original classification system proposed by Carl Linnaeus around 250 years ago. Complete the following paragraph by using the most appropriate terms. The system of classifying organisms according to their observable features or genetic characteristics is called taxonomy. Organisms are classified into large groups, which are then subdivided into increasingly smaller groups. A system such as this is called a hierarchy. The term that describes the evolutionary relationship between organisms is phylogeny. Now you'll need the insert for this, which is in this description. New Zealand is made up of 2 large and many smaller islands and is situated a long distance from any other landmass. In New Zealand there's a large variety of birds not found elsewhere in the world. Among its many species of the parrot family that are kaka, kia and kakapo. These birds are shown in figure 4.1 on the insert. State 2 characteristics that birds such as parrots share with other members of the animal kingdom. Now, yet again, there's a lot. No cell wall, they're heterotrophic, eukaryotic, multicellular, form blastulars, and a high degree of mobility. Name the domain to which the parrot belongs, eukaryote. You don't need the E for some reason. Species that are more closely related in evolutionary terms have more genes in common than species that are less closely related. I cannot read. Using the information provided suggests a likely genetic relationship between all 3 parrot species. They're all in the same family. Kia and kaka are in the same genus, so are more closely related and have more genes in common. The kakapo is one of the world's largest and rarest parrot species. The variation in mass of adult birds in the kakapo population has been reported to be between 950 grams and 4,000 grams. That's quite a big difference. Define the term variation, differences between species. Suggest 2 reasons why the kakapo varies in size: genetic factors such as genes, environmental factors, diet. I'd suggest here use examples. Suggest 2 reasons why the reported mass range for the adult kakapo may not be accurate. Only a small number is sampled, and individuals sampled are not representative of a population. Also, the population might have changed in size, so the range has changed. At some point in the past, distinct species of New Zealand parrot are likely to have arisen from an original ancestral population. State the name of the process by which new species arise and suggest the mechanisms necessary for this process to occur. So the process is speciation, and the mechanisms are isolation of a population. There are 2 forms, sympatric, allopatric. You give an example. So allopatric speciation due to the formation of mountains, sympatric speciation due to change in behaviour. A mutation occurs leading to natural selection, then evolution. And that's that question done. So I'll give you another few seconds to pause. Good. So, the black poplar was once a common tree throughout southern Britain. Its numbers have decreased by 94% since 1942, and it is in danger of becoming extinct in the wild. There are thought to be approximately 2,500 black poplars surviving in Britain today. Use the information above to calculate the original number of black poplars. So, 2,500 divided by 0.06, and make sure you round to a whole number because you can't have half a tree. Species such as the black poplar contribute to the biodiversity of the UK. Suggest 3 reasons why the conservation of the black poplar is important. They're part of an ecosystem and a habitat for many species. They're part of a food chain or food web. You can use, well, they might be a source of medicine, or their wood is used for a specific purpose, furniture, genetic resource. They look nice, aesthetic reasons, ethical reasons, and they can also be used for scientific research, which is a bit similar to medicine. Botanic or botanical gardens are important in the conservation of plant species. State why the conservation of a species in a botanical garden is described as ex situ. They're not in their natural habitat. Many botanical gardens use seed banks as a method of plant conservation. Outline the advantages of using a seed bank as opposed to adult plants in order to conserve an endangered species. Most plants produce in excess. This means seeds can be collected without damaging a plant population. Seeds take up little space, so they're easy to transport and store in large numbers. Suggest why it is important to ensure that for each species, seeds in the seed bank have been collected from several different sites in the wild. Maintain genetic variation, reducing the chance of disease affecting the whole population, and also reduces the chance of interbreeding. So I'll give you another few seconds to pause for the next question. I need 2 more to go. Good. In his book On the Origin of Species, Charles Darwin made the following 4 observations. W. Offspring generally appear similar to their parents. X, no two individuals are identical. Y, organisms have the ability to produce large numbers of offspring. Z, populations in nature tend to remain relatively stable. From these observations, he made a number of deductions, which are listed below in Table 6.1. The deductions are supported by one or more of the observations W, X, Y, or Z. In Table 6.1, indicate which of the above observations support each deduction. You may use each letter W, X, Y, and Z once, more than once, or not at all. Characteristics are passed on to the next generation. So, offspring generally appear similar to their parents. There is a struggle for existence. Now, this is organisms have the ability to produce large numbers of offspring because it means that they must compete against each other. Populations in nature tend to remain relatively stable because, obviously, if all organisms survived easily, their population would increase each time. Individuals with beneficial characteristics are among the few who survive. Yet again, same for the struggle for existence. And also, no two individuals are identical, leading to adaptation, variation, evolution, and natural selection. Resistance to antibiotics has evolved in some pathogenic bacteria, such as MRSA, suggests why the resistance of MRSA to existing antibiotics is a major concern to humans. MRSA becomes harder to treat, potential for disease outbreaks, and developing new antibiotics takes time and is expensive. The evolution of antibiotic resistance in bacteria is evidence to support the theory of evolution. How does fossil evidence support the idea that evolution has taken place? Fossils show that organisms have changed over time, so they can be dated and they can show intermediate forms. For example, the horse leg gradually changed over many millions of years. And last question now, so I'll give you a few seconds to pause again. Good. Lymphocytes are important components of the immune system and can be classified into B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. For each of the following statements in the table below, identify whether the description applies to B only, T only, B and T, or neither. So, mature in the thymus, that must be T only. Secrete substances which kill infected cells, that's T killer cells. Manufacture antibodies, that's only B, which turn into plasma cells. Undergo clonal expansion, both can do that. And activate other lymphocytes, that is T. So, next question. In figure 7.1, shows the concentration of antibodies in a patient's blood following an initial infection with a pathogen. It's known as the primary response. Describe the changes in the antibody concentration that occurs in the patient's blood during the primary response. No antibodies appear till 4 days. Antibody concentration increases steeply and then decreases less steeply until a concentration of 0 again at 27 days. The patient was subsequently infected with the same pathogen 30 days after the initial infection. Draw a line on the graph to show the likely concentration of antibodies in the patient's blood from 30 days onwards. So this must be steeper, must start between about 30 and 34 days, and at 60 days must be higher than the highest peak of the primary response. Final question, here is an antibody, complete the table. So A, that's the hinge region, provides flexibility, so antibodies can bind to more than one antigen. Constant region allows binding to phagocytes, that's B, and C, variable region, binding to specific antigens. And that's the paper done with. I hope, as usual, that helped. Any comments, please message me, email, like, subscribe, rate, whatever. And yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.